friends, I am Arpit and I'm here with today's analysis. Today is 6th of May and we are going to cover two very important topics which are in news. The Chinese president's visit to Europe. The Chinese president is expected to visit three countries in Europe. He'll begin his visit with France, followed by Serbia, and then he will go to Hungary. Well, this visit is very much significant in these tumultuous times of war between Russia and Ukraine. China has also redefined its friendship with Russia as friendship with no limits. Now, in this scenario, China wants to project itself as a global superpower at par with USA and deal with the European countries. European Union itself is divided on this kind of issues, whether to portray China as a facilitator or as a challenger in these situations. Certain countries of European Union definitely see China as a good friend, a very good friend, whereas the others are apprehensive about its intentions. Next is the blue corner notice which has been issued for Ravenna. This blue corner notice has been issued by the CBI, which is basically the national agency for Interpol. Interpol has various color coded notices according to which, circulars are issued to the countries all across the world. It is believed that Ravenna has fled to Germany, where he is hiding, and this blue collar notice is kind of a lookout notice for him. Now, it depends on the governments of India and Germany whether they will take this forward, and Germany will hand over Ravenna back to the Indian authorities. So, let's get started with the first topic, and that is Chinese president's visit to Europe. Now, to understand this topic better, we need to first look into the global geopolitics presently. Now, when the world was under the Cold War period, there were two poles, USSR and USA. USSR dominated by Russia. Where was China? China at that time started its journey as an independent country in 1949. It was a communist country, so earlier it was tilted towards this particular bloc. But in the 1960s and further in 1970s, China started drifting towards this bloc, where it allowed private investments, particularly investments from the American companies over there. America was also keen on China that a communist country has partnered with us. This was an ideological victory for America. Now, during the Cold War period, this was the scenario. And when the Cold War ended, USSR disintegrated as a bloc. USA was the only pole left. It was a period of around 15 to 20 years of unipolarity. I would be more modest and say it was a period of around 15 years only. And by that time, I would say the mid 2000s, China started emerging as a global superpower. China conducted or did its economic reforms in the year 1976, which focused towards the secondary sector post that. And that is why, we call China as the factory of the world right now. Many countries slowly and gradually became dependent upon China. China's forex kept on increasing because it was an export oriented economy, exporting goods to various countries all across the world because the factories were there, the manufacturing expertise were there, and the low cost of manufacturing due to economies of scale and cheap labor was there. Slowly and gradually, China, when it started rising, has now started to give it to USA. China is not only the second largest economy of the world today, but is also a military superpower. China is posing direct threats to the USA. Among all these years, EU, that is European Union, also started to emerge as one of the major blocs in the world. A few years ago, the collective economy of EU was bigger than that of China. In 2019, EU and China's economy were almost at par, but now China's economy has surpassed EU's economy by 15%. China's economy is 15% larger than EU's economy. The world now is a multipolar world. The equations in the world are very complex right now. Among these poles, one is India, also, let's not forget Japan. And in this multipolar world, maintaining relations with the other can definitely have repercussions or impacts on your relations with the other bloc. Sometimes it is purposefully done. This topic is China's president's visit to Europe. European Union, which is largely considered as an ally of USA. NATO is basically a testament to this. The age-long partnership between USA and Western Europe is a testament to this. But lately, we've seen certain differences arising in the European countries and the Americans. On these testaments only, like NATO, we covered a few days ago, where we saw that in NATO, there are multiple inherent challenges where USA is not happy about unequal spending in military by the European countries. European countries are apprehensive that America dominates a lot in NATO. So these are the differences which are appearing among EU countries and NATO countries. A few years ago, around in 2021, AUKUS, a military deal was signed between Australia, UK, and US, where UK and US had to provide nuclear powered submarines to Australia. Those submarines will not have nuclear weapons, but they will be, receive the source of power will be nuclear plants over there in those submarines, according to this deal. Now, Australia was in talks with France already since the last few years before 2021. For a few years, Australia was in talks with France. The talks were in the final stages that France will deliver submarines to Australia, and then this happened. This obviously antagonized France against Australia, against UK, and US also. So, this is another example of, I would say, um, not so good relations between European countries and USA. Now China is playing its cards with these countries in European Union, and therefore you know the Chinese president has chosen these three countries very carefully. France, because China very well understands that there is certain, I would say, problems between France and USA. France very lately has been advocating and a very vocal, I would say, member in the EU, which is, vouching or advocating for European self-dependency to reduce American dependency in European Union. It is doing this way. Serbia and Hungary, they are actually two members in the European Union, which are considered to be friends of China. They are wanting increased investments from China in their respective countries. They are wanting to increase trade with China a lot. So in itself, you will see that these countries are not so much significant at the global stage that the world's second largest economy's president is going to visit over there. But yes, geopolitically and considering the present situation, it is important. Why didn't the Chinese president choose UK or Germany? These major players in European Union. UK is not part of European Union now, but in Europe, these major players are there. But these places were not chosen by the Chinese president. Only these were chosen. Now, they see China as a necessary counterweight to USA and are eager to bolster economic ties. China is very keen to end the world, which is a world, and make it a world freed of American dominance, because it can challenge America's position as of now, because it is the second largest economy militarily. Also, it is the second strongest, I would say. So this is going to, flare up a lot of things, this particular visit. And India should not be a mute spectator. India should be closely and keenly watching all the developments which happen over there in Europe, because that can increase the geopolitical weightage of China, and there can be certain challenges for us as well. The significance of this visit. At this time of elongated war, this war we know is going on between Russia and Ukraine, with most of Europe supporting Ukraine. China has declared its friendship with Russia as no limits friendship, or friendship with no limits. It is a bold step taken by China to connect with the European countries and project itself as a global superpower. Obviously, Russia Ukraine war will be discussed during this visit of the Chinese president in Europe. Of course, France is not, I would say, supporting Russia. France is there with Ukraine, although it has its differences with USA, but it does not mean that it is going to support Russia. So, this is going to be a very crucial, I would say, visit. Now, the timing of the visit. When I talk about this timing, this is also very crucial. For Europe, the visit will test its delicate balancing act between China and the United States, because Europe has good relations with China, United States. Now China has come for visit, And it is not like that the Chinese president will be meeting the leaders of these three countries. They will be meeting, the Chinese president will be meeting the leaders of European Union as well. Xi Jinping, how he has timed for China, how the timing is important. See, it is basically the year 1999, and there were, you know, blasts or bombings in the Chinese embassy in Belgrade during the Kosovo War. And the date on which Jinping is going to Serbia is actually coinciding with this date. Who did those bombings? NATO accidentally did those bombings. USA apologized for those bombings also. Those bombings killed three Chinese nationals, a journalist and two more people. Now, why Jinping has chosen that particular date? He wants to highlight that NATO is actually, wanting things to be on its own way. Intent is to highlight NATO's overreach, not respecting international laws, and hypocrisy. Just by apologizing, NATO believes that things were settled at that time, 25 years ago. It was 1999. That was the era of unipolar world. USA was a unipolar world. Now, when the Chinese president will be there, certain commemorative activities will be there, which will revive that episode. And that episode will be a big question mark towards NATO forces, which is dominated by USA. So the intent is to highlight that particular episode. That is why this particular date has been chosen to visit Serbia. So, in diplomacy, you do activities like this. In diplomacy, you tend to highlight, and from those highlights, you tend to create a narrative or build a perception among the countries. So this is basically the significance of timing. Now, the EU China cooperation, we're talking about overall European Union and China cooperation. Very lately, European Union has formulated a doctrine which drives its relations with China. This 27 member European Union defines China as a partner for cooperation, an economic competitor, and a systematic or a systemic rival. Now, isn't it confusing? Partner for cooperation, rival. Economic competitor, rival. तो ठीक है, we get to know. But a partner for cooperation and rival, this is quite confusing. It is contradictory, mouthful, and it is because the continent is torn. Europe is torn. Some members of Europe want to have relations with China. That is their partner for cooperation. Some of the members are too apprehensive about China. They consider it as a systemic rival. Now, there are various threats from China as these companies see: national security risk, cyber security risk, economic risk. Now, in March, China Foreign Minister Wang Yi told reporters that Europe's formula was unworkable. This formula, partner for cooperation, also it is considering China on one hand. On the other hand, it is considering it as a competitor. On, on the other hand, it is considering it as a systemic rival. That is why the Chinese Foreign Ministry is saying that this formula is unworkable. We cannot work with the European countries with this formula or with this doctrine, which they are having for us. He says that it is like finding the red, yellow, and the green light all on at the same time. How can one drive on? You'll be confused whether to go, whether to stop, wait, what to do. Now, Z would like to ease the lights towards green and, will push the relationship forward. This is what experts are anticipating. When I specifically talk about the countries with which the visit is there, in which, like France, what France opines about Europe USA equation. So, let us first see about France. President Emmanuel Macron has often made the Gaullist point that Europe must never be a vassal of United States. Means it should not be too much over dependent upon United States. It should have its own capacities. Survival of EU depends on strategic autonomy, which it should have, and developing the military resilience to become European power. He rejects the notion of equidistance between China and United States. Here is coming the balancing act. Macron says that we are not in this position that we are equidistant from China and USA. Like India has an equidistance from the Western countries and Russia. Both we are having good relations with. So the French president is saying that we are not at equidistant. We are more closer to USA and farther from China. This is there. This is the reality. But we need to be, Atmanirbhar, or we need to reduce our dependence on USA. We are too much dependent upon USA, and due to which USA dominates too much over us. This is what French president is saying. And all of this is music to X's ears. Means this is something which is in favor of China. So this is the thing which needs to be known. Now, why France, Serbia, and Hungary, these three countries were chosen by the Chinese president? France, Macron is trying to bring a third way in the current global chaos. Russia, Ukraine, it is a global chaos. Ukraine is being supported by the West. And now China is also being brought in. Although China has declared that friendship with no limits with Russia. But now Europe is explicitly dragging China into the conflict, making it more chaotic. It can make it more chaotic. Just over a year ago, Macron was lavishly entertained during a visit to China that ended with a Sino French declaration of a global strategic partnership. France was also not happy with the AUKUS deal, which happened in 2021. It was looking for partners and it found China as a partner. Whereas France with India is also very good. We extended a last minute invitation to the French president for this year's Republic Day parade, and he, graciously accepted that. And he has done with China also. Like a global strategic partnership was forged last year. The French leader echoed the Chinese lexicon of multipolar world. We are living in a multipolar world, free of blocks and the Cold War mentality. Whereas USA is living in that Cold War mentality. Psychologically, USA wants to live in that Cold War mentality where it can project itself as the strongest. And obviously, it was the clear winner of the Cold War. So it feels itself at a comforting position if it projects this Cold War mentality all across the world. So France, in the near past, we can see how things became amicable between France and China. So that is why France was chosen, and France in itself is a major, major player in Europe. Militarily, also, it is powerful, technologically developed, economically, also, it is a developed country. Now, when I talk about Serbia and Hungary, Serbia, where China is the second largest trading partner, and Hungary, where its prime minister, Mr. Viktor Orban, has backed massive Chinese investment and used his country's position as a European Union member to dilute criticisms of China. So it seems that Serbia and Hungary, these are the two friends of China in European Union, which are diluting, you know, uh, the criticisms about China in European Union. That is why these two countries were chosen. And both the countries bridle at American power. They are not so fond of the American power. If not America, then who will they look at? It is China. That is why this becomes important and significant. That is why these three countries were chosen. Now let's see what developments will be there during the Chinese president's visit to this or these countries in Europe. Keep an eye on it. If anything significant, I will be picking up for update topic. Next is Blue Corner Notice. This Blue Corner Notice has been issued for a JDS or Janata Dal Secular MP Prajwal Revanna. This notice has been issued by Central Bureau of Investigation, charges sexual assault on the party workers, helps and all. Prajwal fled to Germany on a diplomatic passport after nearly 3,000 videos showing him allegedly sexually abusing party workers and other women. It went viral on April 28th. Now, in this heightened election scenario, these things happen and, it got surfaced. Since it is surfaced, it is a crime, and a crime is a crime for anyone and everyone. That person should be punishable. And unlike the governor or the president, which have immunities under Article 361, unfortunately, MPs do not have. We covered it on Saturday. Now, about the notices. These notices are issued actually under the aegis of Interpol. Now, why CBI has issued this notice here? We will see that why CBI has issued. But yes, let's first look into the types of notices. It issues 8 types of notices. Interpol. It means Interpol issues 8 types of notices, 7 of which are color coded. We will see each color coded notices. What does it mean? And the other one is a UNSC, backed notice. First is the red notice. Red notice is about to seek the location and arrest of a person wanted by a judicial jurisdiction or an international tribunal with a view of his or extradition. It is the closest instrument to an international arrest warrant, this red notice. So, Interpol had issued red notices last year for multiple Khalistani terrorists as well. Next is blue notice. Blue notice is to locate, identify, or obtain information on a person of interest in a criminal investigation. So, this has been issued for Prajwal Revanna. Investigation has to be done. The crime is not proven yet, investigations are not done. However, the evidences are there, ample evidences are there, those 3,000 videos are there. That is why blue notice has been issued for. Green notice is to warn about a person's criminal activities if that person is considered to be a possible threat to public safety. Yellow notice to help locate missing persons, often minors, or to help identify persons who are unable to identify themselves. For these kind of people, yellow notices are issued. So till now, red notice, blue notice, green notice, yellow notice comes black notice. I could not, put that in black because it would not have been visible to you guys. But yes, it means to seek information on unidentified bodies. Let's suppose some bodies are found dead or I would say in an inebriated state, then black notices are issued. Orange notice is issued to warn of an event, a person, or an object, or a process representing an imminent threat and danger to persons or property. Purple notice to provide information on modus operandi, procedures, objects, devices, or hiding places used by criminals. Now, is it important to memorize all these? Actually, if it can be done, it would be better. But yes, since the last 1 year, red notice and now the blue notice is in use. So these two though should be on your tips. Then Interpol UNSC special notice to inform Interpol members that an individual or an entity is subject to UN sanctions. That is why this Interpol UNSC special notice is issued. So these are 7 color coded notices, and the 8th one is this Interpol UNSC special notice. Are these notices binding? This is a big question which you need to understand. No, all Interpol notices are completely discretionary. Discretionary means it depends on the countries to countries. Like Interpol is what? International police. But don't consider international police to be such a police which can arrest people. Interpol is just a facilitating mechanism. Country one, country two. In this Prajwal Revanna case, country one can be considered as India, country two can be considered as Germany, where he has fled to. Now, in country one, there is a national, control bureau, which is in the form of CBI. Germany will have its own NCB, and Interpol will facilitate communication between two. It will all depend on government of Germany whether the government of Germany will act on this blue notice or not and hand over Prajwal Ravanna to us or not. It generally is defined by the, I would say, relations between both the countries. And as of now, Germany and India have good relations with each other. They are completely discretionary, as that is, Interpol itself cannot compel law enforcement authorities to act on a particular notice. It is up to their discretion, those law enforcement agencies in the respective countries. Very often, actual action on the notices is predicated on the relations between the two countries. Given India's amicable relations with Germany, where Prajwal has fled to, it will be fair to expect that Indian and German law enforcement will fruitfully cooperate to resolve the case. About Interpol, it is an international organization facilitating international police cooperation against terrorism, trafficking, and other crimes. All decisions regarding the activity of Interpol are made by General Assembly, which is its supreme governing body, which meets annually, and all the members of Interpol are members of this, General Assembly. Status: it is not a unit or part of United Nations system, which should be understood clearly. It is an independent international organization which is headquartered in France. It was founded in 1923. Now it has a National Central Bureau (NCB) in every country. In India, it is the CBI, and that is why the CBI has issued that notice. For Germany, it can be there or it will be their NCB. So Interpol will facilitate communication between CBI and the NCB of Germany. And it will totally depend on the NCB of Germany whether they want to cooperate or not. So it obviously depends on the relations between both the countries. Now, MCQs. When I talk about the MCQs, the first is the no limit friendship defines the ties of which countries? China and France, Russia and China, USA and France, USA and EU. Very simple it is. How many of the following risks are perceived by EU from China? Economic threat, cyber security, national security. How many of them are perceived as threats from China by EU? Blue corner notice of Interpol refers to which of the following? To locate, identify, or obtain information on a person of interest in a criminal investigation. To warn about a person's criminal activities if that person is considered to be a possible threat to public safety. To help locate missing persons, often minors, or to help identify persons who are unable to identify themselves, and none of the above. And the last question is consider the statements and mark the correct one. Today we are only having 4 MCQs. Interpol is headquartered in France. Second is the notices of Interpol are binding on member countries. Only one, only two, both one and two, neither one nor two. So do attempt these questions and you know send the answers in the comment box. I will be updating all the answers in the comment box. I'm not able to do that since a few days, but yes, I'll start doing that. Don't worry. And till then, you guys very well know what to do. Keep studying, keep reading, keep writing, and most importantly, keep revising. Namaste, Jai Hind. We'll see you tomorrow.